You're thinking of getting a Byrna less lethal launcher, but you don't know which model is best for you. Maybe it's the SD, or the CL, or the LE. In this video, we're going to get into a lot of information, going over all the details and specifications of Byrna's 3 launchers, starting with the SD, then the LE, and finally the CL. Then we jump into some size comparisons of all 3 launchers. I bring out my measuring tape, it's gonna get crazy. We'll then talk about the different types of projectiles. We'll discuss why Byrna went from measuring the energy of their launchers in joules to the impact energy in joules per square inch. And lastly, we'll go over some core things to consider before purchasing a launcher. I'm Colin with Raiden Safe Defense, and I help equip folks like you with safer, less lethal tools for self-defense. Now before we get into it, I wanna show you this. So Byrna has made a tremendous effort in supporting American jobs. They're assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana, as we see here, and it says made in America with 80 to 90% US parts. And if you're one of the folks who believes Byrna is too expensive, we all know anything built in the United States is going to be more expensive. So I highly suggest taking this into consideration when shopping. Let's get into it. So first we're going to look at the SD, which stands for self-defense. This is Byrna's tried and true launcher. It's one of the most popular, and it's a fantastic option for a lot of people. So let's go into what is in the kit. They are all going to come with an instruction guide. So how to set up your Byrna. Read through all these instructions, very, very important to go over. Then we have 2 8-gram CO2 cartridges. And every kit is going to come with 2 CO2 cartridges, along with 2 5-round magazines. So you've got your spare right there, and then the other one comes installed in the launcher. And then we have projectiles. First we have the Pro Training projectiles. You're going to get 5 of them. If you want to know more about the different types of Byrna projectiles, check out my video. I'm going to link it in the description below. Also probably somewhere in this video. I go over everything you need to know about the projectiles. Then we have the Eco Kinetics. You're gonna get 5 of these, and then you're going to get 5 kinetic rounds. So these are really just give you a taste of the projectiles. Really what you'll wanna do is buy the 95 count jars of whatever projectiles you want, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Now let's get into the features of the launcher. You have a safety ambidextrous on both sides. You have a honeycomb grip. You're going to have the mag release right here, again with a 5-round magazine. They all come with a cap tool. You're going to unscrew the CO2 chamber right here, pop in your 8-gram CO2, and then tighten it back up. You have Picatinny rail if you want to put a laser or a flashlight. And then you're going to have sights, 2 in the back, 1 in the front, to make target acquisition a lot easier. And as far as the colors, we are going to have safety orange, which is the best option if you obviously don't want it to look like a real gun. And then if you do want it to look like a real gun, there is the tan option, which is actually a very popular color. A lot of folks who like to do outdoors activities, whether it's overlanding or camping, hiking, some reason they love this color, maybe because it blends in with nature. And then of course, you have the tried and true, ultimate, realistic looking Byrna launcher in black. So for the SD, the energy density is going to be 30 joules per square inch. And I'll go over later why Byrna changed to joules per square inch instead of joules. I know a lot of folks think it's a marketing ploy, they're not happy with it, they think it's total BS, but I'll go over why it actually is a lot more accurate and a better measurement of the effectiveness of these launchers. The muzzle velocity on the SDs is going to be 280 feet per second, or if feet per second is confusing, that is about 190 miles per hour. Again, the magazine capacity is going to be 5 rounds. And also the SD has a 7-round magazine. This is a mag defender, which is great if you want to protect your magazines and the projectiles inside. But as we see here, there are 7 rounds that are staggered, and it is the same length as the 5-round. They just placed 2 more in there. And this is just great. I love it. If I'm shooting in the backyard practicing, I get 2 more. If I'm in a self-defense situation and I'm just really nervous and I'm missing all my shots, well, I've got 2 more chances to hit my target. The CO2, as mentioned before, is going to be 8 grams. And with the SD, you're going to get 22 shots per CO2 cartridge. And the effective range on the SD is going to be 60 feet. So you have a lot of distance between you and your assailant. As far as the size of the launchers, it's hard to get a understanding. So I've got a cell phone here. I was going to use my iPhone 14, but then I realized I'm actually filming with it. So I was looking around and I found my dad's, rest in peace, jitterbug that he used to use. If you don't know it, this is for older folks who just have a hard time using technology. This is essentially the same size as the iPhone 14. So it's going to be 6 inches long and then 3 inches wide. So if we place this over the launcher, we can see that it extends beyond 6 inches. I'd say probably about 1 inch to 1.5 inches beyond. And then it's it's slightly less than 6 inches in height. And I'll put the phone behind. Maybe that can provide a different perspective. And that does it for the SD. So let's move on to the LE. The kit will be the same as the SD. And the reason why the kit doesn't come with chemical irritant rounds, which we'll discuss later, is because there are a few states that have issues with chemical rounds. They're illegal for civilians to use. So Byrna decided to make a universal kit that can be shipped out to all 50 states with no problem. So again, it has the Pro Training, which is inert powder for practicing. You have Eco-Kinetic for practicing, and then you have the Kinetic, which you can practice with, but it's also for self-defense. We again have 2 CO2 cartridges, but for the LE, it is going to be 12 gram, so a little larger. Same with the SD, it is going to come with 2 5-round magazines. And of course, the LE also works with the 7-round magazine as well. Similarities with the SD, it is going to have the ambidextrous safety. It has the honeycomb grip. It has a Picatinny rail for a laser or a flashlight. And then there's a little bit of a difference with the sights on this one. As you see, we have some white dot sights, get that in focus, on the back and on the front to make target acquisition a lot easier. And then one thing that I didn't mention with the SD, however the SD, the LE, and the CL all have this, is there's going to be a breach indicator right here. And that's going to pop up when you have a projectile ready in the breach. And as far as the colors go for the LE, it's going to come in safety orange and then black. So there is no tan color for the LE. Now, as far as the specs on the LE, the energy density is going to be 41.9 joules per square inch. The muzzle velocity is going to be 330 feet per second, or otherwise 225 miles per hour. With the 12 gram CO2, it's going to give you 17 shots per CO2 cartridge. The effective range on the LE is going to be 60 feet. And then as far as the size, let's get the jitterbug, the old trusty jitterbug. Again, it's going to be 6 inches long, 3 inches wide. And we see here that it is longer than the SD by about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And the height is going to be the same as the SD. So really the only difference with the SD and LE in terms of size is just the length. Everything else is going to be the same. And then the LE is heavier compared to the SD. Quick favor to ask you, if you're enjoying this video, please like it. Feel free to share it with anyone that you think would benefit from it, and then also subscribe to my channel to ensure that you get notifications of any new videos that come out. Thanks so much. And finally, let's get into the CL, Compact Launcher. So let's open it up and see what we got. It's a little different compared to the SD and the LE in terms of this card. Two features that you need to be aware of. This is the same for all launchers. However, for the CL, it's probably more important, which is pressing in the CO2 canister when you insert it into the chamber. And then there is initial conditioning. So you shoot 30 rounds, and then you have to run an oil canister through the CL to oil the parts. Just like the SD and the LE, it's going to come with 2 CO2 cartridges. This takes an 8 gram, just like the SD does. Again, you are going to get 2 5-round magazines. We clearly see that this magazine is a lot different. It's a lot smaller. And the other magazine is in the launcher. As for the projectiles, the tubes look a little different because these are going to be 61 caliber as opposed to 68 caliber, which the SD and the LE take. I'll show you the difference later. So the CL kit is going to come with 2 tubes of kinetic projectiles, which are the plastic. So you're gonna get 10, and then you're gonna get a pro training projectile, which is the inert powder. So some key differences with the CL. Obviously we can see it is a lot more compact compared to the SD and the LE. The entire shell is going to be polymer. It doesn't have the honeycomb grip that the SD and the LE have. And then the Picatinny rail is smaller. You can attach a laser or a flashlight. A really cool feature with the CL is that it has green rear fiber optics and then a front red fiber optic. And just like the other launchers, it has a breach indicator. So that is going to pop up when a projectile is in the breach. And unique to the CL, it has a universal bolt pattern right here. So you can install either a Byrna Red Dot Pro sight or another manufacturer's red dot sight and really ensure that your target acquisition is on point. And as far as the colors of the CL, you are going to get the safety orange and then black. The energy density on the CL is 41.9 joules per square inch. So that is the same exact energy density as the LE. As far as the muzzle velocity, that's going to be 400 feet per second, or approximately 273 miles per hour. It comes with a 5-round magazine. There is no 7-round magazine, at least not yet. Not sure if they'll ever make that, if they'd be able to do that. And then the CO2 is going to be the same as the SD, and you are going to get 15 shots per cartridge. And the effective range of the CL, just like the SD and LE, is going to be 60 feet. And then as far as the size, we'll get out the trusty jitterbug again. But check this out. Just slightly over the 6 inches. We can see it's a lot thinner as well. As far as the height, the SD and the LE came to about here. So subcompact, highly concealable, a great option for taking it in a purse or having it concealed on you. And that does it for the CL. So now let's compare all 3 different types and go over the differences. Now seeing them laid out together really gives you a good idea of their size comparison. But let's actually get out the trusty measuring tape and just get kind of an approximation of the sizes. So for the CL, the approximate length is about 6 3/4 inches. For the SD, the approximate length is 7 1/4 inches. And then for the LE, we have about 8 inches. As far as the height, the LE is going to be about 5.5 inches and the SD is about 5.5. So again, these are equal in height, but then the CL is going to be different at about 5 inches. So there's a 1/2 inch difference. And to show you again with our lovely jitterbug, we'll show you the difference right there. You have the CL, the SD, and the LE. And to give you a real depiction with my hand, and I told you my hands are small, don't say anything, no jokes, all right? I don't want to hear anything in the comments, which I'm sure I will. But my hand is about 7 inches in length, and then I'll just show you gripping them what it looks like. So with the CL, an important thing to know is that if you have larger hands, your pinky is going to be off of the grip. And so you will just get a magazine extender. It's called the 5-round finger groove mag, and that's going to extend the grip for you to about here. This is the 5-round finger groove magazine for the CL, just to give you an idea, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So as we see, the 5-round is going to be flush. When I add the 5-round finger groove, now we see that it's giving you a little bit of extra room, so you have more room for your hands. See that difference? And then we'll go with the SD. So as we can see, a decent amount larger. They say that the CL is 38% smaller than the SD. As we can see, the grip here, right? I've got a lot of room. So for guys with bigger hands, no problem here at all. And then the LE, like I said, everything is the same here, just that it's heavier and then it's going to be longer. So hopefully all of that helps you determine kind of the size differences and what might be best for you. And then for the projectiles, I'm gonna show you the kinetic rounds to get an idea. This is the 68 caliber kinetic round for the SD and the LE. And then this is the 61 caliber round for the CL. And all of the launchers have the same projectiles except for the Eco Kinetics. So these are biodegradable, meant for training. They only are for the SD and the LE. CL, they may make them in the future, and hopefully they do, because these are great for training. Then of course the kinetic rounds, so the 61 and the 68 caliber. All launchers have the Pro Training, which is inert powder meant for practicing. It's a plastic shell, breaks on impact. The CL, SD, and LE have the pepper rounds, which is a highly effective chemical irritant. And they all have the max rounds, which is a highly, highly effective chemical irritant. An important note for the chemical irritant rounds, both pepper and max, the 25 count jars are for the SD and the LE. As for the CL, the pepper and max rounds come in 5 count tubes. And again, if you want to know everything that there is to know about all the projectiles, check out my other video. I go into great detail about everything. I'll link it below and in this video as well. As promised, let's go over why Byrna now measures the power and effectiveness of their launchers in joules per square inch as opposed to joules. Joules measure the energy at the muzzle. So at the point that the projectile exits the barrel, the energy is measured, and that is supposed to give you an idea of how powerful the launcher is. But joules don't account for how much energy hits the target. And so that's where joules per square inch comes into play, otherwise known as energy density or impact energy. So this factors in the size of the projectile, or the surface area that hits the target. And this really matters when comparing the LE to the CL, for example, because they both have 41.9 joules per square inch. However, the joules of energy that are coming out of the barrel are different. And the CL is going to look less powerful if you just account for joules. So the LE fires a larger 68 caliber round at 330 feet per second, and it delivers about 16 joules of energy. The CL fires a smaller 61 caliber projectile at 400 feet per second, so faster than the LE, but it only delivers about 11.7 joules. So you'd think that the LE is going to be more effective, but here's the twist. The 68 caliber round, since it's a larger round, the energy is going to be spread out upon a larger surface area. With the CL, even though it's using less total energy, that energy is focused into a much smaller point. So because that energy is more concentrated, it increases the pressure, and therefore the pressure on the LE and the CL are the same, and that's what joules per square inch measures. We can think of it like this. If someone is going to hit a target with their fist, well, when they hit the target, the impact energy is going to be dispersed. So they use a lot of force to punch. Now, if they take their hand and they open it and they jab with less force, the impact energy is more concentrated. So therefore, it's going to be the same as the punch because the energy is concentrated as opposed to dispersed, even though you're using less force in the jab. So no, Byrna is not inflating numbers. It is not a marketing ploy. Joules per square inch simply measures more effectively the energy that a target is going to feel, which really matters at the end of the day, as opposed to the energy coming out of the barrel. Finally, let's go over some core features of the launchers that will help you decide which one is best for you. Let's talk about colors first. I'm going to use the CL as the example. We know that all three launchers have colors of safety orange and black, and then the SD comes in tan. As far as the safety orange, essentially there are a lot of positives to the fact that it does not look like a real firearm. I know a lot of firearms lovers and those who conceal carry real firearms are probably not going to like this at all, but there are a lot of benefits. One example is if you have a situation outside of the house and cops show up, they know within milliseconds that you don't have a real firearm, so they're gonna treat you differently. If you have an attacker or some kind of an assailant and you pull this out and they realize that it's not a real firearm, believe it or not, there is a benefit to that. There are drawbacks to that as well, but I personally like the safety orange for outdoors. As another example, if you're camping, fishing, hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, it's just great to have something that doesn't look real. But I do realize that there are benefits to having a black launcher that does look like a real firearm. So, for example, if you have this pointed at someone, I'm 99.9% certain that they, within milliseconds, are not going to think that this is a Byrna launcher. They're going to think that this is a real gun. And so the benefit to that is that it could de-escalate the situation even more because they realize that this is a very, very serious weapon. And there is also a study that was done that found that over 95% of situations where someone had a firearm during an altercation, all they had to do was brandish it, and that de-escalated the situation. Now, I'm not saying the orange launcher won't de-escalate as well, because that absolutely can. Every situation is different. There's no one size fits all. Really, it comes down to what is your personal preference. Now, I would say if you decide to use this for home defense, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of comments from all the firearms lovers talking crap about this, saying that this is ridiculous to use in your home for self-defense. Use a firearm 100% of the time. As far as home defense, I would say the black version is a great way to go, because clearly if someone is inside your home, this looking like a real firearm is probably your best bet. I don't think you want the person inside your house thinking that you don't have a real firearm. And as far as the tan SD goes, this can look real as well. Clearly we know a lot of guns come in a tan color. So now that we've talked about the colors, let's get into the types of pistol style launchers. This is the SD, clearly. The benefits of this is that this is what most people have known Byrna to be. The SD has kind of been their flagship launcher. It's highly effective. It's got great stopping power. It has more of a weight in the hand. And so if you really just want to spend the least amount of money, because it is the cheapest launcher, and you just want something that's highly effective, this is the way to go. My personal favorite is the CL. And the reason for that is just being highly compact and concealable. It's just insanely versatile. Whether you want to have it on your person, if you're concealed carrying it, if you are jogging or running, you could have it in like a fanny pack. Some athleisure has like little pockets for the cell phone. There's also a company that does make a little pocket meant for firearms, but you could obviously use the Byrna. So a lot of women love this. You can have it in a purse, just so versatile. And then of course, it's just as powerful as the LE, which we already went over. If you didn't watch that section, watch it, because it really explains why this has the same stopping power as the LE. And the LE is a lot bigger and it's heavier. So why not go with the lightest, smallest, most powerful version? It is the most expensive though, so that would be a drawback for folks who don't want to spend the money. And also another perceived drawback could be the fact that it does not have a safety on it. Byrna says it's sort of a no snag design, so if you have it in a holster or in your waistband and you're pulling it out quickly, there are less things to get snagged, which makes complete sense. But at the same time, I know a lot of folks might want a safety. For me personally, it's just not that much of an issue. The benefits far outweigh the fact that it doesn't have a safety. But again, it's all personal preference. Some folks might not like the fact that this doesn't have a 7-round magazine, which I love the 7-round magazine. And that's where the LE might come into play. So we have the largest of them all, the LE. Like I said, it is the heaviest, but this does have the 7-round magazine and it feels the most substantial, especially if you're a larger person, if you're taller in stature, if you have bigger hands. This just really feels hefty. It's a great size. You know, the CL, for example, is if you're smaller and you have smaller hands, but LE stands for law enforcement. So if you want to feel like a real badass and you know, you're not too concerned about concealing this, you don't need anything very small. If you have this in your vehicle, you know, it can just be in the side of your door. It can be in your glove box. If none of that is an issue, then this is a great option. It is the most powerful. Like I said, the CL and the LE have the same impact density, but this is going to be the 68 caliber. So if people just don't want the smaller caliber with the CL, well, you get the bigger 68, you get the 12 gram CO2. So this is, you know, a nice beast to have. Hopefully a lot of your questions have been answered. If you have any more, make sure that you leave them down there in the comments, and make sure that you check out the Projectiles video if you want to know everything that there is to know about Byrna's less lethal projectiles. I'll see you next time.